Hello, 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 everyone. How exciting. So, as you know, we live in Australia and the whole world is going through this COVID-19 madness. But here in Australia, people love property and people love uh, dreaming about property, and they either own property to live or they either own property to invest. And there is a specific person that helps people when it comes to get their lending sorted with the banks. And this is a mortgage broker. As you know, if you're in Australia, that many things have been put in place to help those that have mortgages and to help the ones that are actually buying property right now. So this is why I decided to have a mortgage broker here with us today. And so he could answer all our questions and maybe even give us some light to us on how the banks are dealing with this whole situation, because he's the one that deals with them. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you John Kim, and I'll let him introduce himself and say a little bit about himself. So John Kim, it's all yours.
Hey Peter, thanks for having me. Good to be here. So as you said, my name is John Kim. I'm a mortgage broker. I work for myself. Been in mortgage broking for about 2 years now. Before that, I've always been in financial services since uni, working for the likes of AMP, Suncorp, NLC, dealing with retail clients, to financial planners and corporate clients. I got into mortgage broking because I always wanted to own my own business in the field that I'm passionate about. During the corporate years, I really didn't know what I wanted to get into, though. But I've always been interested, as you know, of growing my own personal property portfolio, investment portfolio. So, and every time I tried to deal with a mortgage broker, I had a difficulty finding of a mortgage broker that I felt like I could trust. And I always ended up doing my own loans. So essentially, since I was 25, I've basically been my own mortgage broker. And I decided, you know what, I have a passion for properties, property investing, and I trust myself to do my own loans. So why shouldn't I naturally go down that path? And basically ended up here helping my clients and myself for the last 2 years.
I guess most of us are always in the same situation when we decide to open our own businesses, is because we probably believe there's no one that will do it better than us. And I guess as a first question, and I get asked that a lot, is like, what are you seeing in the market at the moment from the lending perspective?
Yeah, so at the moment, I mean, as everybody can sort of expect, the market, especially in March, was a bit of a quiet period. Everybody was sort of in shock, trying to determine what's going to happen with my job, what's going to happen with my business, how are they going to change their lifestyle. So I think March was a period where everyone was sort of adjusting. April's really picked up though, with new inquiries, especially in refinances, but I am still getting inquiries about pre-approvals, especially from those more savvy property investors who are sort of getting the finances ready now to take advantage of any of the pricing discounts that they expect to come in the next couple of months.
And what is the attitude of the banks towards this now? Like, has anything changed? Do you find that they have been stricter, or they're asking for more documents, or is it still everything the same?
Understandably, it's definitely changed. So the banks have understandably become a little bit more risk averse, and that only makes sense, right? That it doesn't mean that they've stopped lending. They are still open for business. They still do want to lend, but some banks have literally just stopped lending to people that works in certain industries like hospitality, retail, tourism. But those are certain banks. A lot of banks are looking at case by case and based on the strength of the application. So they are still open for business, but just a little bit more cautious. As you can imagine, also valuations have been coming in a little bit more conservative, but most of the valuation have been coming in okay, so that's good to see. And I'd say that not everything is doom and gloom. People are still purchasing properties. A lot of people are still taking advantage of low rates to refinance their properties. And I am seeing investors now sort of coming back, whereas last 1 or 2 years, they were really, really quiet. It was majority first-time buyers. But now those first-time buyers, especially being the first time they're buying a property, they feel very worried. Whereas people who have bought properties in the past, they know what the market's like. They know these periods come. So they're actually starting to prepare their finances. They're looking at their borrowing capacity. They're not jumping in immediately. Some are, some aren't. But I do find a lot of people are starting to sort of, a lot of investors are looking at options in the coming sort of few months to take advantage of the situation.
I see. But that people would say, okay, so these are people that in theory have no financial struggle. But what are the banks doing for those people that are actually struggling at the moment? Is there any sort of relief? Are they helping anyhow?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of different forms of relief, right? There's people for business owners, there's people for homeowners. There are other banking sort of relief as well in terms of a little bit higher interest rate on savings account, things like that. However, being specializing in home loans, I'll go into the details of home loans. So typically the banks are offering up to 6 months of repayment deferrals. So a lot of the common option is the customer would contact the bank and request a deferral because they're going through financial difficulty, and the bank would approve up to about 3 months worth of monthly repayment deferral, followed by a review at the end of that period for another 3 months. Now, this is all done case by case, so it's really depends on your personal circumstances, and it's not something that's encouraged for everyone, especially if you don't really need it.
But what does that actually mean? So yes, you stop paying for your mortgage for 6 months, but you still have to pay your interest. So how does that work?
That's right. So some of the banks haven't been as clear as they should be because, of course, this is all unexpected. Everyone's trying to come up with, the government, the banks, they're all trying to come up with a solution in a rush to help people. So some banks aren't as clear, but basically what it means is they're not just completely waiving the interest or repayments. What it is just a deferral. Really, the 3 months, you're not paying any mortgage repayments and it's being deferred. And then if you do another 3 months, of course, 3 months after that as well. But that money you have to end up paying back later down the track. And often it's not like they will just add it and double your monthly repayment over the next 3 months or 6 months. Will be added to a much longer period, whether that's 12 months or the term of the loan. So, of course, if everybody's monthly repayment doubled at the end of the period, then it would be a disaster. So they do have these measures in place, but how they deal with it after the deferral period depends on the specific bank.
And do you know if these will affect the credit score of people?
No, if you communicate well with the bank, it won't. So it's always really important to communicate with your mortgage broker or your bank if you're going through any sort of difficulty. And the reason for that is because, of course, if you're just not making repayments, it's considered basically falling behind on your repayments and potentially even defaulting. So if you do communicate with them and make sure that they are aware of your situation, and especially they're very well aware of what's going on in the economy at the moment and how it's impacting people, and especially specific industries. So if you keep the communication line open and make an arrangement, they're not going to put that on your credit file.
Now, for those that you said they still want to buy, still want to purchase something during this time, has anything changed? From experience, I've heard that, for example, before banks used to take in consideration casual workers, like casual workers that always had a steady income, but they were casual. Does that still apply today?
Yeah, so again, I mean, I deal with 35 lenders, so it's very hard to paint them all with the same brush, but it does come down to individual bank policies. But to give you a sort of broad idea of how the banks are looking at it at the moment, they are a little bit more cautious with people in certain industries, such as the ones that are specifically hit really badly at the moment with the COVID situation. So if you're in hospitality, tourism, sports, those kind of industries, they are very careful about it. But it also comes down to the strength of your application as well. So to give you an example, if someone's trying to borrow 95% and they're borrowing to the maximum limit of their borrowing capacity, and they've been in their job for 1 or 2 years, of course, the bank's going to be a lot more cautious of that compared to someone who's borrowing 70% of the property value and who's been in their profession for 5 to 10 years.
I see. And you know, I know a lot of people that have already, like, you know, you have a bank account and you have this, I don't know, you think you have a relationship with that bank that you bank with, and you find yourself going, oh, you know what, I'm just going to ring them up and talk directly to the bank. So for a person that has never used a broker before, what's the advantage of you going on your own and talking directly to the bank and using someone like you instead?
Yeah, so that's a question that I surprisingly get asked a lot. And to give you an idea of how far mortgage broking has come over the course of the history is now 60%, around about 60% of all home loans in Australia are written by mortgage brokers. And the reason for that is because it's a no-brainer to go to a mortgage broker. Firstly, it doesn't cost you anything. You can get away with pretty much the same deal as going directly to a bank. Secondly, and it really comes down to three main reasons why you would use a mortgage broker. The first one would be choice. A lot of mortgage brokers have a different panel of lenders they deal with. I specifically deal with 35 different lenders. So I have a lot of banks that I can choose from depending on what's the best fit for the client in terms of not just the quantitative side in terms of interest rate, but from a qualitative side as well. The structuring side, the product, as well as the credit policy. So I get a lot of clients that come to me and say, but this bank has a really good low interest rate. Well, that's no use if they can't lend to you based on your circumstances, whether it's your visa situation or your employment situation. So as a mortgage broker, it's our job to understand these different policies and provide you with the best product and the lender option out of the lenders that are willing to consider your situation. The second reason is best interest duties. So now it's actually legislated that mortgage brokers have to act in your best interest. So we need to put our client's best interest above our own, whether that's in terms of remuneration or whatever the fact is. Now, most mortgage brokers out there have been doing that already. Most mortgage brokers that I know are acting in the best interest of their clients. But of course, now having that legislated gives an extra layer of comfort for the clients to deal with mortgage brokers. The last one is dealing with, now I guess this is where different mortgage brokers differentiate themselves, is advice. So mortgage brokers are able to give advice in terms of how to structure your current finances to plan for the future. Now, if you go directly to a bank, they're just gonna give you the option they have, which is just their bank product. That's it. Whereas a mortgage broker, we work with you like a financial planner would or an accountant would for the long term to plan your strategy and your portfolio to achieve your long-term and short-term goals. So I know that was a bit of a long answer, but hopefully that summarizes it pretty good for you.
Yeah, that's really good, but then it sounds very expensive. So how much does your services cost to people for them to go to you? Because you do a lot of work.
Yeah, nothing at all. So basically, we get remunerated by the bank. So, for example, as I said, I've got 35 lenders that I deal with. If I take my client's deal to a specific lender, they remunerate me at the end of the process for the work that I've done. And the reason they do that is because I do a lot of the work that otherwise they would have had to do. So, for example, it costs them a lot of money to hire employees, have branch networks around Australia. So if they use a mortgage broker, it's actually a variable cost for them. They only have to pay out when a deal is done. So it's actually good for them. It's actually good for us as well, especially for second-tier lenders as well. So we don't charge the clients anything. The clients would get exactly the same deal, or sometimes even better, if they go through a mortgage broker.
Interesting. Because if I remember, like I think 2 years ago, like APRA was really putting all mortgage brokers on the cross like they were doing something bad. And it's good to see. Now, I know some mortgage brokers that they only work with a specific type of value. What do I mean with that? So for example, they say, oh, I only deal with customers that are buying $1 million homes, because the work I get to do a loan for $1 million home, and the work that I get and the work that I have to do for 300,000 investment property, it's exactly the same. But the payout, it's better on the $1 million home. So what type of broker are you? Do you have any specific client, or any client is a client?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Sorry, just before I answer that one, your previous question, let me just put a little disclaimer there. I don't charge any fees. It doesn't mean all brokers don't charge fees. So please don't go to a different broker and say, hey, John said you're not supposed to charge me any fee, because it's up to their business. They run their own business. So I just don't charge my clients any fees. Now, to answer your question in terms of what kind of clients do I deal with, no, I don't have a minimum amount that I deal with. I honestly do my work because I love what I do. I was at a situation where my loans weren't that big. My portfolio wasn't very big. And I believe that if I look after a client really well, they're going to have friends and families that will need help as well. And who knows, maybe their father's a millionaire and they need a few $1 million in loan. You know, it's not like I don't see a customer as a dollar figure. It's more so, if I look after every client, that's just going to grow my business exponentially down the track. So what I do focus on though is first home buyers and investors. That's really what I deal with a lot, and refinances as well.
Awesome. Now, John, just like me, probably a lot of people, they have their individual questions, and they're very personal questions because each person has a different finance situation. So if people wanted to contact you or give you a call, or I don't know, just ask you a personal question, would you be open to it? And how can they do that?
Yeah, 100%. So the best way to contact me is via phone or email. My phone number is 04333 90648. That's 04333 90648. And my email address is john.kim@ourbroker.net.au. I'm sure you're going to put that at the bottom of the video. So they can contact me through those two means. I do have social media as well, but that's the fastest way to get in touch with me.
All right. Thank you so much, John, for your time. And thank you for answering all these questions. And I wish you all the best. And I hope you stay safe and stay inside during this time. And guys, you're open to just give him a call and answer your specific questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate your time.